All right, today we're going somewhere a little different. We're stepping beyond the familiar, comfortable timelines of history. We're opening the door to a different kind of archive, one that holds the ideas that were so powerful, history actually tried to bury them.
So let's just start with this question because it really gets to the heart of it. What if the history of philosophy that you learned in school, that neat, tidy line from one great thinker to the next, what if that's the sanitized version? What if it's missing all the chapters that were considered too radical, too unsettling, or maybe just too dangerous to teach?
Yeah, we're often taught to think of the history of ideas as this complete, finished library. But what we're going to do today is explore the pages that were torn out, the ideas that were pushed to the margins, not because of some accident, but completely by design. And this is the real kicker. We are not talking about ideas that just kind of faded away or got disproven over time. No, no. We're talking about concepts that were actively, deliberately forced into the shadows by the powers that be. Okay, so this collection of hidden knowledge, this whole archive of forbidden thought, what do we even call it? We call it the Shadow Cabinet. It's a name for all the philosophy that you are never going to find in the official textbooks. Now, to be clear, the Shadow Cabinet isn't some dusty room somewhere. It's not a physical place. It's a powerful idea, right? It's a conceptual archive. It's a home for all those philosophical ideas that were deemed too dark, were intentionally hidden, or were just forgotten, because they didn't quite fit the accepted story. So if we could peek inside, what would we find? Well, for sure, we'd find ideas that were way too controversial for their time, maybe even for ours. We'd see concepts that were flat out rejected by the establishment. But, and this is the most important part, we wouldn't just find the ideas themselves. We'd find the stories of why they were suppressed. And honestly, that's often the most fascinating part of all. Which leads us to this really fundamental question. How does an idea even get to be so dangerous that it needs to be hidden away? What is that path to suppression? Right. See, this doesn't just happen by accident. Ideas that truly threaten the way things are, whether it's politically, religiously, or socially, they don't just fade away. They meet resistance, they're fought against, and very often, they are deliberately scrubbed from the conversation. And you can kind of see a pattern, a life cycle, if you will. It all starts with a radical new thought. Then, boom, that thought challenges the status quo. In response, it gets a label: heretical, dangerous, nonsense. And once it has that label, it can be officially rejected, suppressed, and eventually, it just slips into the shadows, waiting for someone to find it again. Okay, so enough theory. Let's actually get a feel for what we're talking about. Let's peek inside the archives and pull a few hypothetical case files from the Shadow Cabinet, just to see what these forbidden concepts might look like. First up, imagine the raw, unfiltered ideas about fate from thinkers way before Plato and Aristotle came along and kind of tidied everything up. These were not comforting philosophies, let me tell you. They were stark, often really bleak views on human freedom that were later sanitized to make them a bit more palatable for society. Or how about the Gnostics? Their central belief, which was totally heretical, was that salvation didn't come from some big institution outside of you. No, it came from gnosis, a secret, personal, inner knowledge. I mean, you can just imagine how threatening that was to the established religious authorities. It basically said, the power is in you, not with us. And for something really out there, think about the lost ethics of historical nihilist groups. These were entire philosophies built on the premise that life has no meaning, no purpose, no intrinsic value. What kind of moral framework do you build on that foundation? It's a question so unsettling that those ideas were often just stamped out, treated like a moral poison. So this all brings us to a really key question. Why are we so drawn to these things, to these dark, difficult ideas? What is the allure of forbidden knowledge? Because it's definitely more than just morbid curiosity. Well, there's actually a name for this feeling, the uncanny hook. It's that powerful, totally irresistible pull you feel when you sense you're about to learn something you weren't supposed to know. It just taps directly into our deepest, most basic curiosity, that desire to see what's behind the curtain. And that's really what makes exploring the Shadow Cabinet so addictive. Each idea, from the lost ethics of the nihilists to the Gnostic heresy, it feels like a secret that's just waiting for you to unlock it. It turns learning history into an act of discovery, of solving a great mystery. So, at the end of the day, the big takeaway here isn't just about the specific ideas we've touched on. It's about recognizing that our history of thought, it has its own shadows, its own suppressed stories. And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. What other powerful, challenging, maybe even world-changing ideas are still out there, just waiting in the dark for someone to find them?